What's up, airplane fanatics? It's the Ball Pilot here with another update on my Tucana build. So it's been around 9 months since I received the first parts of Tucana Replica, a kit airplane manufactured by Italian-based company Flying Legends. Since then, I've completed the entire tail section of the aircraft, to include the horizontal stabilizer, the elevators, and the fin. I've also completed the ailerons and the flaps, and I'm currently working on assembling the first of 2 landing gear compartments, and in about 6 weeks, I'll welcome into the family the main components that makes airplanes so special, the wings. So at this point, I feel that I've waded far enough into the airplane building waters to provide a few informed observations and lessons learned that will be most valuable to those of you considering undertaking one of the most intricate do-it-yourself projects imaginable. Now, before I get started, it's important for me to remind you that I am assembling this airplane from its most basic components, and not from a more advanced stage of assembly, of which there are 2 currently available, and those are the Advanced Kit and the most complete form, the Quick Build Kit. So with that in mind, today I'll be revealing to you my top 5 observations and lessons learned related to this build. So my very first observation is that this project is not complex. I'll start off by giving credit to the manufacturer of the Tucana Replica, Flying Legends, for producing a very illustrative and descriptive set of manuals. These resources make the assembly process less of a headache because, as the old saying goes, a picture speaks 1,000 words, and the manuals are mostly color illustrations and pictures. Also, the team in Italy continues to be very responsive, coming to my aid on numerous occasions via WhatsApp group created specifically for me to enable, let's call it, knowledge transfer. At least every other day I'll have a rookie question or 2 to ask the team in Italy, mostly queries to get assurances from the mothership that a big step that I'm about to take is a correct way to do things. All things considered, on a rating scale of 1 to 10, with a number 1 rating representing the least complex, and a number 10 rating representing the most difficult, I'd rate the overall assembly of the tail section somewhere between a 7 and an 8 rating. Observation number 2. Metal preparation is labor intensive. By far, for me, the most surprising aspect of building an airplane from pre-shaped sheet metal is the huge chunks of time preparing the metal before it's ready for assembly. From cleaning up the edges and holes of every metal element, a process known as deburring, to priming all of them, metal prep will consume 50% or more of your airframe assembly time. Now, this process is not at all difficult, it's just that there are so many parts to clean up and prime. Now, for me, priming all the parts was the most challenging phase of metal preparation, principally because I'd never messed with compressor-driven paint guns before, and because of the high toxicity level of the epoxy primer I decided to use. But let's not forget why we prime. For those of us that reside in hot and humid locales like I do, priming helps to fight off corrosion, thus preserving the metal components of the aircraft and, by extension, the safety and the value of your investment. So on my scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate priming an 8, mostly because you're messing with toxic chemicals and need extra gear and equipment. Observation number 3. Riveting is simple but takes practice. The great thing about the Tucana Replica is that most of the rivets used in the aircraft structure are pop or blind rivets like these. These are easy to install and can be installed or pulled rapidly by using a battery-operated rivet gun like this one. You can literally pull hundreds of these in under an hour if you're efficient. However, there are portions of the aircraft that require the application of solid rivets. And though I appreciate what solid rivets do in terms of holding the plane structure together, I am definitely not a fan of installing, much less removing, solid rivets. Observation number 4. As a beginner, don't measure your efficacy in hours. So all kit manufacturers provide approximations of how many hours they estimate it'll take to assemble their respective aircraft. Now, I'd advise you not to fixate on those numbers, especially if you're a first-time builder like I am. Here are the reasons. The first, there are so many variables that determine how long it'll take you to complete any given section of the airplane. For example, The horizontal stabilizer has many more parts than the aileron, and there's just more going on inside of it, making it far more of a challenge than the other control surfaces. Also, as a new builder, you'll be stopping frequently to get input from the experts, so you don't make really big mistakes. Also, as much as you think you do, you won't have all the tools needed to get everything done, and so you'll be ordering additional tools and materials as you go along. You'll also make rookie mistakes and may need to order new parts like I did on several occasions. So, if you're thinking of undertaking a project like this, my advice is to manage your expectations and appreciate that there is a modest learning curve that you'll have to climb. But once you get over the top of that curve, things will really start to zip along. So yeah, you kinda have to pay your dues up front. My final observation is that this has been a very satisfying experience. So far, it has lived up to my expectations and been very fulfilling. I'm enjoying the journey thoroughly, as each week brings many payoffs in the form of a particular piece of the airplane evolving into its final form. I've especially seen my builder IQ elevate to a much higher level, and my confidence has increased immensely too. What this all means is that I can get tasks done at a much faster rate and with greater confidence than when I started 9 months ago. So, if you're like me and enjoy problem solving, working with your hands, learning new skills, and building something as special as a cool looking flying machine, then you ought to consider a project like this. It's really the ultimate self-paced, do-it-yourself project that without a doubt will be one of your life's biggest highlights. Well, Airplane Fanatics, that's all for now. I hope you found this update informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring. I'll be back in about a month or so with a recap of the flaps and the landing gear box assembly, and maybe even a preview of the wing assembly. So guys, thanks again for tagging along on my airplane building journey, and I'll close out with this inspiring quote from builder and aviator extraordinaire, Mr. Howard Hughes. Do the impossible because almost everyone has told me my ideas are merely fantasy. Take care, guys.